Each of you who are here, notice that there are all these people here with you. And in some way, we're connected with a common purpose. We want to know what's possible. We want to know what's possible for our body. So one of the first things about Primal Trust is this sense of connection with life itself. There's life going on right here in this webinar. And just smiling at each other and realizing we're on this journey, this hero's journey together. It's a connection. It's a connection to your body. It's a connection to, in this moment, feeling your breath in this chair. Even if you have symptoms, you're alive. Your body, this brilliant thing, you're in a body. You're here having a human experience. It's trust that your body is going to take another breath. It's going to pump one more pump of blood through the heart. It's a trust that the body has an innate wisdom that you don't understand, but was created by something much greater than you, and you're a part of it. It's connection to the earth itself. It's connection to the trees. It's the restoration that we have lost. We've been programmed into primal fear, but we all have the birthright of primal trust, which is that there is an innate intelligence running through us and around us, connecting us. And we're here to experience this aliveness. And that can be restored to us. We don't have to live in primal fear.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Oh my gosh. You're designed by God. The world was designed for you. The primal trust, it opens up your heart. Okay, I am super excited colleague, friend, brilliant. Okay, Dr. Cathleen, doctor of physiotherapy, neuroscience educator, mentor, chronic illness and trauma patterns, weaving together brain retraining and nervous system regulation, polyvagal theory, just somatics, attachment repair. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, no, this is such an honor. This is just to experience you in person, okay, anybody who hasn't met you, just the genuine, the brilliance, the kind, the loving, the heart connection. You're a sister from another mother.
Thank you. I feel the same way. You're one of the most unapologetic, real people that I have come across in a long time, and I appreciate that.
Now, Doc, you've got a presentation. What's in the way of my healing?
Yes. You guys ready?
I'm super excited for this. Yeah.
All right, let's get started. This is a hot topic. Lots of people always ask me this question, so that's what we're going to talk about today. What's in the way of my healing? Hold on, I want to pull up the chat just in case I need to see it. All right, great. So today I'm going to talk about, now this is not a complete list, and I actually gave a similar class with a whole different set of ideas just a month ago, which you can find on my YouTube, but this will be some things that I did not talk about in that class. So if you saw that one, this is different. We're going to talk about belief systems, the elephant in the room, the cell danger response, when you think fight and flight is normal, lack of somatic embodiment, our self-talk, our life view, our worthiness, and our potential for a spiritual disconnect, and structural, physical, and environmental issues. So with that, I'm just going to dive right in. We're going to go through all of these points, and then I think Dr. Bergman and I are going to talk for a bit and open it up for Q&A. So my favorite thing, to believe or not to believe that you can self-heal. And I love when people are now calling me a pseudoscientist. I get to have that honor, which is a whole new status for me. I had to say it this way because I swear, like, all of a sudden we are having so much amazing results. I know, at least in our community and other communities, of people self-healing from all sorts of things, Lyme disease, mold toxicity, chronic fatigue, all these labels. And when we present them, the naysayers like to say, this is just pseudoscience. Let's talk about what pseudoscience is, shall we? Pseudoscience. Have you ever heard of the placebo effect? or the nocebo effect. This has been validated with normal medicine that if you believe in something like a sugar pill might cure this, or even a fake surgery will fix your knee, there is a high likelihood that that might happen. So you can call it pseudoscience or you can call it the power of our belief. But either way, our belief is strong. And if I was to say one thing about your healing, do you believe you can heal? Do you believe you can heal? And getting past that whole like, oh, I don't want to do woo-woo magic, pseudoscience stuff. It's not pseudoscience. It's the way our bodies work. It's the way our energy works. And science has validated that. So our belief is powerful, and we start there. And if you are having a hard time with your belief, I highly recommend learning the science behind the autonomic nervous system and the fact that it runs everything. You get all these diagnoses and these labels, but when you learn the polyvagal theory, the science behind limbic system impairment, the science behind cell danger response, the science behind the vagus nerve and what's running everything, it might make sense to work on your beliefs, your emotions, and your attitudes. It's not going to be woo-woo anymore. It's going to be rational. And if that's not enough, look at testimonials of people who have self-healed from the same things you have. On our website alone, we've got thousands. We've got, I'm sure Dr. Bergman, you've got tons of stories. These stories are out there of people just like you with likely the same diagnosis and prognosis, and somehow they reversed it. A lot of times without even treatment, depending on what path they took. And one of the things that I would like to shout from the rooftops is that you are more powerful than you are being told. You are more powerful than you are being told. And it is time that we remember how capable we are and reprogram that consciousness around what chronic illness is. So that's point number one. Let's move on. All right, point number two. What is your elephant in the room? What is your elephant in the room? What do I mean by that? If you don't have your illness or your symptoms to talk about all day long, and this is the reason why I don't feel good, what would be the other thing in your life that might be causing relationship distress, financial distress, emotional distress? This is huge. I see people talk about how I'm doing everything. I do all my brain retraining, my nervous system work, taking my diet and eating perfect. And why am I not healing? And they're not seeing that in their same household, they're full of resentment, full of blame, full of stress, full of fear. Maybe you're doing the right things 1 hour a day and you're spending 23 hours a day in resistance, in resentment, in people pleasing, in perfectionism, in consulting Dr. Google on the latest cure for your issue and scaring yourself. What is your elephant in the room? I refused to look for an elephant for a long time. And I was very ill, chasing symptoms and protocols, but my relationship and the way I was living was so out of alignment, and it had been for most of my life. I had to look there. So look for your elephant in the room. You know, maybe you need to do parts work or in therapy, or, you know, get some type of help. There might be something more than just your physical body that needs to be addressed that's influencing your autonomic nervous system, which influences everything. So looking for the elephant in the room. All right, point number 3. Might be stuck in something known as cell danger response, which might mean A, you can't tolerate anything. You're supposedly allergic to everything. I can't eat anything. This is where your body is overreacting to the internal environment and probably the external environment. This is often referred to as CDR1, which is where your cells are actually having an appropriate response. Cell danger response is an appropriate response to physical, chemical, injury threat, pathogen threat in the body. Our mitochondria are supposed to say, hey, cells, shut down and protect because there's something that might harm us. And you might get decreased energy. Your immune system might decrease. Your detoxification system might decrease for a while. But what happens when we get stuck there, when our cells are constantly getting the message that there's a threat, there's a threat, there's a threat? Well, despite taking, your 60 supplements and your perfect diet and all the things, you're not getting better because you're not absorbing things, because you're still stuck in a cell danger response, and your cells are still sending the messages that there's a threat and we need to hunker down and protect. And again, if you're having an issue with belief, learning the science behind this theory with this brilliant man by the name of Robert Naviaux, who came up with this theory, I think is one of the futures of what could potentially shift the way that we approach medicine in the future. He really helps you to move from a pathogenesis approach to a biological approach of what's happening in the body, where it's not about the pathogen that entered, but how is your biology responding to the pathogen, to the toxin? And a lot of it has to do with our upbringing. Were you brought up in a stressful environment? Have you been in a lot of stress? Was your nervous system programmed to go into a shutdown and stay vigilant? And now on a biological level, that's what your cells do when you get an infection or when you get exposed to some type of toxin. It doesn't know how to feel and perceive that these threats come and go. You get stuck. Some of you might have done treatment and detox and you're past the infection, but you don't feel any better. What's going on? You don't maybe have the toxins or the pathogens stimulating the cellular response anymore, but your brain is stuck. Your brain is stuck in a protection response from the past. And this is something we teach about a lot in Primal Trust, which is limbic system impairment, where the limbic system has become primed to over-respond to everything. And it's just still living out that past. It's still living out the experience of the past of having an acute infection, having a mold exposure, having whatever. And so you may need to retrain the brain, the limbic system of the brain, to perceive the world as safe again, to move you out of that cell danger response. All right, number 4. I'm not stressed. I just said this to Dr. Bergman last week when I saw I'm just busy. There are some tests that can give you some indication if you are actually in a stress response. Dr. Bergman just did an amazing one, and maybe we can talk about this later, thermography test and some other things, heart rate variability tests. A lot of people will have chronic symptoms and they will tell me that they're not stressed. And I don't believe that because the body knows how to self-heal when we are in balance. And even me as an entrepreneur, and I see this so much with my entrepreneur friends, like we feel passionate and motivated. We don't feel stressed, but our sympathetic system is probably still on overdrive if we are not taking that time to chill out and to check in. And what can happen is literally on a cellular level, your receptors can adjust to the amount of stress hormones in the body. You can become addicted to them, and it doesn't feel like anxiety anymore. It just feels like normal because you're so used to that amount of cortisol and adrenaline running through your bloodstream. So this is something to consider. If you're someone that says, yeah, I have all these symptoms, but I'm not stressed, you may want to look into something that can give you some feedback as to the reality of your situation. I know a lot of biofeedback trackers are getting popular, like the Oura Ring. I'm actually wearing one right now just to look at my heart rate variability. What's going on? What's actually happening? Oh, when I was just typing for 2 hours, it said I was stressed, even though I didn't feel stressed. Maybe I shouldn't type for 2 hours straight in a row, things like that. So looking into that would be another thing, and just recognizing you might have a habit of just running that biochemistry. Oura Ring, OURA, there's a lot of different trackers. There's a lot of different ways to measure your heart rate variability. One way to know is, do you take time to just sit and breathe? How much are you rushing around? What's your breath pattern like? What's your heart rate like? What's your blood pressure like? Those are all indicators as to your state of your autonomic nervous system. Number 5, somatic awareness. Be in my body. What body? How many of you feel like you're just stuck in your head all the time? You kind of are just, the part of you that you are aware of is from your shoulders up. I know I can relate to that. Somatic awareness is incredibly important and a crucial part of our program in Primal Trust to restore the autonomic nervous system function. It basically means you're doing different practices to become aware of your breath, your body, your movement, your posture, the feeling of your body, the emotions in your body, the felt sense in your body. All of this helps to regulate your autonomic function. It helps to improve your vagal tone. And that is why somatic practices are gaining so much popularity in the chronic illness healing world right now. I would say that, a lot of the people that I've been interviewing in my program, when they say what helped them the most, it's actually the somatic practices. It wasn't the brain retraining, although that gave them a foundation. It was coming back in the body and feeling their feelings and processing what is there. But you cannot process it if you're not in the body, if you don't drop down, if you're not paying attention to your breath, your felt sense. So relaxing around your body symptoms. A lot of us don't go into the body because it stresses us out to feel our symptoms. But part of that release of symptoms is to come in and feel it and breathe with it and find a state of trust and coexisting with those symptoms. Okay, so highly recommend taking time in silence every day, being in nature, feeling what's there. It's going to start to bubble up and it's probably going to be uncomfortable. And you may need therapy to help you work through it. You may need a coach. But it really is in and through the body that our healing happens, that we can get our digestion back online, that we can get our heart-brain coherence going. So exploring somatic practices are a must for those of you who resonate with having chronic illness, chronic symptoms. Number 5, I am and I have. What do I mean by that? This is your self-talk and your worldview. What we speak, we program. Your self-talk, your worldview really does co-create your reality. It reprograms your subconscious attractor field of your life. We talk a lot about this in our program, that our subconscious is just expecting what we say and expecting what we believe. Our subconscious can be reprogrammed, and that is why what you say is so important. In Primal Trust, we don't teach you to just say affirmations with the brain retraining. You've got to learn how to somatically embody and express these words. So finding words that really matter to you, finding a vision of you. We do a lot of visualizations along with the I am and the I have. I have is moving into a state of gratitude versus a state of lack. It completely reprograms your limbic system about what's available to you over time. Sometimes for a lot of us who grew up in environments where this wasn't modeled to us, we may have had an environment where our parents never modeled proper self-talk or healthy self-talk, and we have to learn that. And I know for me, learning and doing parts work, learning how to speak to different parts of myself, to teach them different I am scenarios. Like maybe I am scared, but I can handle it. That's still a positive affirmation. Like it's acknowledging that a part of you is scared. Or I have this symptom, but I have so much love in my home, or I have so much support here, or I have this beautiful tree I get to look at, or whatever the I have is. Make it true for you. When we get in touch with who we are, this is really about us getting in touch with who we are through our self-talk. It is a self-organizing frequency that happens. For me, one of my favorite statements lately is to just say, I am alive. I am connected. And feeling that, and that organizes in that moment who I am, how my body runs. This is so much more, again, than just an affirmation. In order to change our biochemistry, you have to change. You have to change your worldview. You have to change your sense of yourself. And that will change your biochemical cocktail that you're producing. And the last statement here, I guess we moved on a little bit early. Do I deserve to heal? This one is very personal to me because It's probably been one of the hardest ones for me to look at and to acknowledge and to reprogram. And I see this a lot with people who seem to be doing everything right on some level. When I talk with them, a lot of times there's this deep unconscious resistance to love, unconscious resistance to receiving, unconscious resistance to who they are because they haven't fixed themselves yet. They still do bad things. They still have unacknowledged, unforgiven guilt and shame. This would be an unconscious unworthiness program. It can often cause us to feel unworthy to put ourselves first, to say what we need, to show up for ourselves. And I find that, it's actually a lot more damaging than we realize. And I think that, to be honest, for me, it was a spiritual wound. I would say that I had a program that, until I had made amends with everything, in some way I was separate from God, creation, whatever you want to call that. And it has been a life journey for me to reprogram a lot of, for me, spiritual, religious wounding that fed way into whether or not I consider myself a sinner or a saint based on how I behave every day. I literally made my behaviors my litmus test of how worthy I am and how connected I am with Source and how worthy I am to heal. And I would spend all day long doing protocols and all sorts of things like that. But I wouldn't spend a second questioning these beliefs that I held that were in there that I actually don't feel worthy because I've really messed up as a mom and I wounded my kids and they're still messed up and I can't heal unless they're all better because I don't feel worthy. And, this is a journey, and this can be a journey of really deciding what does it mean to be connected to that loving presence that is all around us. Is it something that we have to earn? Is it something that we have to change ourselves for? For me, when I feel my I am alive and connected presence, the real I am, it doesn't give a shit what I've done in the past. That me is, it's whole. It's whole. And I love when I can get to that state because I'm reminded in that moments that I might have imperfect parenting still, but it doesn't really matter. And when I feel that connection to Source, I do feel worthy to receive healing despite what I have done. So I just want to really put that out there for a lot of you to be willing to judge look at your judgments of what you have judged as good and bad, right and wrong, and how that might relate to your worthiness. And I can just tell you that so many people that I interview that do heal, they find this sense of wholeness. They reestablish a connection with that life force inside of them through this kind of questioning. And then lastly, one more thing to consider would be your physical, your chemical, your environmental influences. I've been talking a lot in the community about structural stability for my own journey. There is a huge feedback loop going from your brain and body, and Dr. Bergman is absolutely the expert to talk about this. Your nutrition, are you eating proper nutrition to be able to absorb the healthy building blocks you need for your cell? Are you doing the things that help you to detoxify? Now, again, your autonomic nervous system is really running the show here. But these things are all very important, and to recognize how am I working with all of these aspects of my foundation. So that is the summary of the roadblocks. And I just want to say that, again, the people who heal, they have an identity shift and they have a belief shift, and they recognize that they have been mistaught about their power, and they have been mistaught about the power of the human body, and they've been mistaught about the science of how healing happens. And all of that understanding is out there and available to every one of you right now. There's no reason why you can't adapt this understanding and this conviction of what the body is capable of. And I hope that a few of these points shed some light on that. So I will pause. That was my monologue.
A few of these points, I mean, it's you boil it down to brilliance. I mean, when someone comes in and I mean, you know what our clinics are like, and I know you get patients like that. They have belief systems. First, you got to get beyond the belief systems. We were talking yesterday, okay, they were the day before on when somebody comes in and they own the disease. And I'm taking notes like crazy. Um, I'm not stressed, I'm just busy. I say, look, you don't have the fibromyalgia, the high blood pressure, the chronic fatigue, the this. Your body's responding correctly based on the stimulus or based on your perception. And that you got to have that unworthiness is brilliant. Doc, I mean, to come up with all this stuff, Doc, can you briefly describe your journey? Because this is wisdom. This is in every religious text and how real healing occurs.
Yeah. You know, how this comes to me is I'm constantly looking back at what had to shift. And I'm always looking at what the people who are healing now, what do I see shifting in them? For me, I was stuck in trauma responses from the get-go. And that was normalized. And then, you know, the illness stuff started happening, and one diagnosis on the other got stacked up. And I went from one doctor to another, giving them the authority and giving them all of my allegiance. What they say goes, what their prognosis says goes. They're the expert here. And the way that I grew up was expecting bad things to happen and expecting suffering and expecting hardships to happen. And so I also, you know, accepted a lot of the things that were happening. And I had a very chronic sympathetic overdrive my whole life, still working on that. But that really plays into how the body functions. And for me, eventually I had to realize that despite seeing literally the best doctors I could find in the US and spending every cent we had and trying over a decade of protocols and supplements and diets and da da da, I was getting nowhere. I was chasing my own tail. Once, you know, two steps forward, one step back. It wasn't working. So that's a hard place to be in, because you have to give up on the program that you have your allegiance with, which is that this outside expert, if they can't help me, maybe I'm just hopeless. Or maybe they're not telling me everything. And maybe they don't know because they're only doing what they've been trained to do and prescribing an algorithm that came to them. Fortunately, I found evidence of people who were self-healing from the incurable Lyme disease, incurable mold toxicity, incurable chronic fatigue syndrome. And fortunately, it made sense to me, because as a physical therapist, I did have a background with mind-body medicine and chronic pain. I knew that the brain the autonomic nervous system regulated all that. And then it made sense that, oh, maybe it regulates infection too, and mold toxicity and all that kind of stuff. So that's really what my turnaround was. But all of these things I touched on were part of the healing. You know, it's multi-layered, it's multifaceted. It's not just like, okay, it's nervous system regulation. What's going in there that's keeping your nervous system in a chronic stress response? Because it's multifactorial.
Oh God. They always say God never does anything to you, he does everything for you. And I'm so appreciative of you suffering and recovering. So because anybody that's recovered from chronic critical illness, you got a connection and awareness with people that are currently suffering, and you know that this is the body adapting. Now, for someone who's never learned safety, because they're feeling, where do they start?
That's such a good question. And that is the question to start with. How can I find 10% more safety right now? You start right now, and you start in this moment. So everybody listening right now, noticing your environment, start with your environment around you. Sometimes it's hard to feel safe in the body when we have chronic symptoms and we're used to freaking out about them. So look around you. What around you is giving you some support right now? Do you have a glass of water around you? Could that give you 10% more safety, knowing that you can be hydrated in a moment if you need to? What about the chair you're sitting in? Are you being supported, and can you kind of lean into it and be like, wow, I can just take a breath right now and feel 10% more safe. I've got a warm home. I'm not cold. I can feel a little bit more safe. It's bit by bit, moment by moment. It's looking for, it's retraining that reticular activating system of the brain, retraining the limbic system, retraining all of these filters of I'm not safe that may have gotten put in place as a child for valid reasons. And now things are a little different. You're likely not in the same environment. It might not be perfect, but if you're all grown up, you're able to have more control over your environment now, and you can put things in place to be safe in a way that you couldn't before. So you've got to look for it. You've got to acknowledge it.
Brilliant. I mean, you talk about people with chronic stress, and their brain programs into that stress, so it's familiar and content, and they get good at hurting and good at paining, at being in pain. How does one begin reprogramming the subconscious attractor field? That okay, I'm familiar with reprogram the brain. I love the way you word this. How do they do that? Reprogram the attractor field of their life.
What we get in the habit of looking for visually, looking for emotionally, looking for with our belief systems, it's a constant input into the brain, and it lets the subconscious know what to expect. So you've got to do a few things. You've got to look in your environment for things that where you're supported, where you feel safe. You've got to look for the ways your body is moving and functioning. You've got to look at how the loved ones in your life are trying their best. You've got to feel, you've got to practice your feeling of those moments of feeling the safety, feeling the gratitude. You're going to have to purposely, consciously do it because it's not a habit. And you've got to look at some of the beliefs that you have and start questioning them. So it's a multifactorial thing that requires consciousness moment by moment in deciding, is this what I want coming into my subconscious or not? Our subconscious is like a magnet, and it literally pulls into our reality that which we expect to come into our reality. And as we change what we expect, we will pull different things. As you expect to self-heal, you will pull ideas and people and perspectives into your environment to give you those different shifts. As you expect to feel self-love, you will attract moments where you spontaneously like, oh my gosh, I feel love right now. As you expect your partner to be capable and present for you, you're going to notice that that's going to happen. It's just how it works. So,
Man, changing your perspective, your perception, and your potential. I mean, just brilliant. Okay, what are the common denominators of people that are actually healing? What do you see in your patients?
yeah. There's a few things. They always say I became a different person. Always. They're like, I'm not the same person. They reprogram their subconscious attractor field. They become aware first of their habits. They had to become aware of like, oh, I actually am in a chronic stress response, and my issues aren't just this diagnosis that was given to me. I'm aware that I have these stressful habits, this resentment, this unresolved emotion, and they have to choose to create new ones. And so they do that. They do this taking responsibility, moving out of victim consciousness in radical ways, and they practice feeling differently. They practice holding space for scared parts of them and learning how to become this strong inner adult to speak as a loving parent to the inner aspects of them that have been wounded, that they get to hold presence for rather than being a victim of it. And this is probably the number one thing they say. I learned how to show up for myself. I learned how to put myself first. I learned how to feel worthy of my needs. I learned how to love myself despite what I have done in the past. Again, it comes back to they've restored a sense of wholeness, worthiness, taking radical responsibility, and recognizing that their autonomic nervous system is running the show, and they put their attention into rebalancing that.
Brilliant. Okay, now your new book, How Healing Happens. How can people learn more? How can they get your book? Because this
Yeah.
is this is literally to change the foundation of how you can build a healthy body, brain, and a healthy life.
On my website, you will see under the free resources, I have a book, How Healing Happens. I have other books as well, one on Lyme, one on brain retraining, etc. But my newest book is 127 pages. It goes over all of this science to convince you that your nervous system is where you need to focus if you've been giving these diagnoses. You will understand why taking the time to do the nervous system work through a variety of methods is what matters most on your healing journey. So, also on my Instagram, there's a link in my bio as well, but the website, primaltrust.org, free resources, there's a link in the chat box right now. I wanted to create basically a free mini version of my program because a lot of people can't afford it. And I get that. So there are several tools to get you started, from brain retraining, somatics, vagus nerve toning, but more importantly, it's to shift your belief system of what's possible so that you are now one of those who is in the front of the line of this consciousness shift of chronic illness and what it actually is and how we heal from it. And that's what I really want to spread to the world. I want to help deprogram that disempowering belief that we've been given.
I love this. I mean, you keep talking about the nervous system. I keep talking about the nervous system. We do it everything that we test at our office is for the nervous system. Can you explain the autonomic nervous system and how it works?
Yeah. Your autonomic nervous system is controlling everything, so if you're stressed about your kidneys or your digestion or your liver or whatever, your autonomic nervous system is what to be focusing on. There's a nerve called your vagus nerve. It runs throughout your body. It goes to all of these organs, and it's constantly sending signals from your body to your brain, and your brain is sending signals back down to your body. And there's this feedback loop that we call the autonomic nervous system that is highly related to our stress state, to what we're thinking and what we're feeling. And of course, there are other things that play into it. Our obviously our spinal structure and the toxins and things like that into our environment. But what we think and what we feel have such a direct impact on that autonomic function. And this is where I say it's important to learn how to consciously self-regulate your biology. Consciously self-regulate your biology. What does that mean to self-regulate? Well, we have all these automatic thoughts and feelings going on and reactions to life all the time. Coming to the house, being upset, not showing your smile, rushing around, scrolling, blah, blah, blah. Self-regulation is the ability to control your internal state of how you're thinking and feeling because you're conscious enough of what you're thinking and feeling. And despite all of the influences around you, what they said, what's on your plate, you are still able to consciously regulate your breath pattern. You're consciously able to slow yourself down. You're consciously able to notice what is going well, even in a shitstorm. And that is how you get into something called heart-brain coherence, which is just a coherent communication between the heart and the brain that restores our autonomic function. So to me, the goal for all of us adults, and to even teach children, how to consciously self-regulate our biology. We were not taught this. This should be the skills that we start learning in kindergarten, because if we had been taught this, we would not have the chronic illness epidemic that we see today.
Okay, that this morning, which is actually nighttime in Asia, I was doing a patient consultation, and I got x-rays. I'm looking at it. I could see, past traumas and things. Guy in his early 30s. And, he's got some symptoms, but the biggest one is poor sleep patterns, poor bowel movements, anxiety, and everything else. And at the end of it, he said, what happens if I don't correct this? And I said, well, your body's going to respond correctly to the stress. And, eventually, have you ever heard of high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, elevations, cholesterol, bowel disorders, anxiety, stress, depression? I said, that's what you'll be misdiagnosed with, because those are not diseases. Those are your body adapting to what we see on the films and what you've told me. And
that's a powerful statement.
Yeah, because that's a whole self-regulating thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you get a patient, do you ever, because I know I do that for a pattern interrupt all the time, that say this critical illness disease that you're, I almost said idiot doctor, but the doctor said that it's hereditary, even though you never had it. Now you're 50, now you do, that your body's responding correctly based on the environment. That's a self-regulate. Now, in case someone's brand new to all this, could you review like brain retraining, polyvagal theory, somatics,
Sure.
attachment repair techniques?
Yeah, sure. And all of this is also in that How Healing Happens ebook. So if you need visual descriptions, it's great. Brain retraining. We target the part of our brain called our limbic system, which is the part of the brain that tends to go in fear and stress. It's your emotional center of your brain. You can biohack your own limbic system with visualization, with changing your emotional state. And what's cool about brain retraining is it works through rehearsal. It's a repetition based thing. Our brain is a rehearsal machine. And so we're just teaching it to rehearse differently. We're teaching our limbic system to expect a different experience. So through visualization practices, through certain mental rehearsal exercises, through different somatic exercises, we're teaching the limbic system to send a different signal to the hypothalamus, which sends signals to the autonomic nervous system of the body. It's what creates the chemistry of your body. You can literally shift the chemistry in a minute of effective brain retraining. You can come out of dis-ease into more ease in a minute. You can do that right now with brain retraining. Polyvagal theory was coined by Stephen Porges, and it basically describes the hierarchy of how our nervous system is constantly responding to our life. He describes 3 different states: ventral vagal connection, which is our safety and connection. It's when I can look at you, my eyes are bright, I'm smiling, I feel safe, I feel like hugging, I feel like talking, I feel like playing. He describes the there's sympathetic response, which is your fight, flight, even partial freeze, but it also can be excitement and energize. So it's not always a bad response. We need some sympathetic activity to have motivation to go do the things we love. But when it gets overreactive and really stuck in that wanting to run or wanting to, get angry or just shutting down, then we can start getting some issues in our body. And then the third state he describes is called the dorsal vagal state, which is when we start. Well, dorsal vagal can happen in a healthy way when we're in a rest and digest parasympathetic state. It's not always unhealthy. It's how we are at night when we're slowing down. But when we've had so much stress for so long, when we're in sympathetic for so long, the body eventually just says, I've had enough. It puts on this vagal brake, which means it just puts the brake on your nervous system and you kind of shut down into a collapsed, immobilized cell danger response, hunkering down, no energy, not digesting, feeling hopeless, the chronic fatigue state. It's just a state of your nervous system that is adapting appropriately because you were stuck in a chronic stress response for so long. I don't know if you had another question. Was there one more?
You covered self danger. Primal Trust. Okay, Primal Trust Academy. What does Primal Trust mean?
Let's just experience it right now. Each of you who are here, notice that there are all these people here with you. And in some way, we're connected with a common purpose. We want to know what's possible. We want to know what's possible for our body. So one of the first things about Primal Trust is this sense of connection with life itself. There's life going on right here in this webinar. And just smiling at each other and realizing we're on this journey, this hero's journey together. It's a connection. It's a connection to your body. It's a connection to, in this moment, feeling your breath in this chair. Even if you have symptoms, you're alive. Your body, this brilliant thing. You're in a body. You're here having a human experience. It's trust that your body is going to take another breath. It's going to pump one more pump of blood through the heart. It's a trust that the body has an innate wisdom that you don't understand, but was created by something much greater than you, and you're a part of it. It's connection to the earth itself. It's connection to the trees. It's the restoration that we have lost. We've been programmed into primal fear, but we all have the birthright of primal trust, which is that there is an innate intelligence running through us and around us, connecting us. And we're here to experience this aliveness. And that can be restored to us. We don't have to live in primal fear.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Oh my gosh. I, you're designed by God. The world was designed for you. The primal trust, it opens up your heart. Oh my gosh. I mean, Mignon in person, if anybody gets a chance, get to Dr. Cat. I mean, there's a real special energy about you. Okay, if you're ready, do you want to take some
Yeah,
questions?
let's do it.